Welcome back to the Eat, Drink, Explore radio network. Here now is your fabulous host, Mr. Randall White.
And a very good day, everyone. Great to have you with us. I am your host, Randall White, here on the Eat, Drink, Explore radio network. Glad you could join us as we discuss all things food, beverages, travel, and tourism each and every week from 8 to 10 right here on this station. And we should let you know that this portion of Eat, Drink, Explore Radio is brought to you by Luna Red Restaurant, just off Mission Plaza in downtown San Luis Obispo. I mean, this is the heart of if you're a tourist or even if you're a local, this is where you want to be, right downtown next to the Mission. Luna Red is San Luis Obispo's downtown tapas restaurant featuring globally inspired small plates, wine, and handcrafted cocktails. Whether you're visiting San Luis Obispo or you call this stretch of the Central Coast your home, Luna Red is a locavor's dream. For more information, head to Luna Red SLO. All right, if you were listening to this program last week, then you may have heard me bring up that there is a new course curriculum at UC Davis that involves Chinese food and beverages. In fact, it is the first of its kind, this specific focus in the world. And joining us on the live line right now to talk a little bit more about it is Professor Charles Shoemaker of UC Davis, or as he likes to be called, Charlie. Hey, Charlie, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Randall. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, so, this article in the LA Times last week caught my eye, and I thought, oh, we got to talk about this because it really loops in so many things that are our focus, and that is, stepping out of our boundaries and trying different things. But also there is a beverage element. California and China share so many things now, including their love for wine, and that will be part of the program as well, as I understand it.
Absolutely. We are excited about that part in particular with the new, very ever-increasing market in China for red wine, and actually other beverages as well. China's had a very long history in beverages, certainly tea, but also alcoholic beverages in terms of rice wines, or as they call them, yellow wines there.
Oh, okay.
And also liquors, and more recently beer, and even more recently red wine.
I was going to ask you, what would be the typical Chinese alcohol? I mean, ours here in the U.S., you've got your bourbon, and now we're, of course, famous for our wines and that sort of thing. Japan, people think sake. China, you said rice wine. So would that be about the same thing?
It's very similar, made at least initially by the same procedures, but they go through an aging process, which turns it into a yellow wine and adds a number of tastes to it as well. They often age the sake, or the rice wine, once it's made. Where in Japan, it's pretty much taken right to the market as soon as the fermentation is finished.
Like here in the U.S., beer, the fresher the better. So in Japan, the sake is super fresh, but is aged in China. It's called yellow wine in English. How would you say that in Chinese?
I don't know how they would say that, actually. They have their own names for it, but it's typically just known as yellow wine.
Right. So the program is called the Confucius Institute, and there are a number of these in the United States, including at San Francisco State and at UCLA, as I understand it.
Yes.
I have that right? Okay, good. But this is the first to solely focus on food and beverage. How did that all come about?
Well, it did because we have, of course, a very good food science and viticulturology program here at Davis, one of the top in the country. And we've had a long association with a university in China called Jinan University, which also has the #1 food science and #1 fermentation programs in China. And we've had a relationship of almost 25 years of collaborations, and from research to exchange of faculty and students. And so we've had this natural food and beverage focus between our relationships, and neither of us had a Confucius Institute, and as we begin to talk about that, it only seemed natural that it should be something to do about the culture of Chinese food and beverage, in addition to just language and other cultural classes, which are taught at all the other Confucius Institutes.
Right. And what I read on in that article is that you'll have some star power, if you want to put it that way, behind the program as well. Martin Yan of the PBS series Yan Can Cook will oversee a portion of it.
He will. He's been a great supporter and actually one of the catalysts for the beginning of the program. He actually was a graduate of UC Davis in food science at the beginning of his career, and went off for use. As a student here, he actually worked at night to help put his way through by teaching Chinese cooking classes, which really was the beginning of his real career now.
Right. I love that. Back in the late 80s, I took food science. In fact, it was my major, food science and nutrition at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. And back then, when I would tell people what I was studying, they said, well, what is, I don't understand. What do you mean food science and those sorts of things? But we've come a long way, haven't we? I mean, food science is now one of the forefront careers.
It is, and yes, I remember those days as well when nobody really understood what we did and equated it with all kinds of things, from serving fast food or washing dishes only.
Right, yeah.
But actually one of the recent things that's happened is particularly the Food Network and a lot of great shows like what you have that has brought to attention to the general public really what food science is all about.
I love it. I love that the collective consciousness is being raised so much when it comes to food because it's such a large part of our life. And I like the fact that this program will help blend or at least educate when it comes to different cultures. And that is the part of the plan, as I understand it. It's funded in part by China, but also there at UC Davis to help progress these ideas.
It is. I mean, most of the funding actually is from China.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Confucius Institute headquarters, which funds and oversees programs. They have over 400 of these around the world and over 90 of these in the U.S. And, of course, we're the very first of these to really come at this cultural learning through a window of food and beverage.
And this is not a degree per se. What is it?
That's correct. It's primarily going to begin as offering courses at the university, but they will be non-academic, non-credit courses, but just general courses and seminars for the university community, as well as the community at large in the Davis area and maybe the greater Sacramento area. I mean, the purpose really is all of the Confucius Institutes is just to provide people with an education and knowledge of the Chinese culture. But we're going to do this specifically from looking at food and beverage rather than just teaching the traditional Chinese language.
So you could take it as like an extension course?
You can.
Okay, good. I've taken extension courses at UC Davis in brewing.
Right.
UC Davis is so well known for all of their just great the Mondavi Center there, the brewing, the food science, like you mentioned, and I was very fortunate to take some of those extension courses back in I guess that would have been the early to mid 90s, and still have a lot of that info up here in my noggin.
Good.
I try to keep it up there. So this would be offered along those lines. If at any point you see a really strong interest in this, could it become part of like maybe people studying business at UC Davis might add this to their coursework so that they might have a better sense of cultural norms and that sort of thing, especially businessmen that would consider a lot of work traveling to and from China?
Absolutely. I mean, there's obviously so much business globalization going on now in China with all the related countries, particularly the United States especially. And from the California perspective, a lot of potential, a lot of business actually revolves around food.
Right.
And there's just enormous opportunities in China. During all my visits there, the Chinese people as a whole look to California as a gold standard, if you will, for food and beverages. So beverages that come from California, that are packaged in California and taken to China, are held with great esteem. So
that's good to know.
Yeah, it is. We hope, we hope this actually is sort of a bilateral institute in the long run. So not only do we want to help educate people to the Chinese culture, but we really want to also educate the Chinese to the American culture, particularly California agricultural products specifically.
I can imagine if you're a businessman and you're trying to, or a business person, I should say, trying to land the big deal, you don't want to make some sort of cultural faux pas over dinner and ruin the whole thing. So I'm sure some people could learn some great points. With the time that we have left, which is less than a minute, can you tell me what is the number one misconception of when people think Chinese food? We think of what we find at our fast food restaurants here in a lot of ways. Is there something that's like a number one misconception?
Yeah, I think, a lot of American Chinese food is cooked in a lot of syrups and sauces, and many times it all looks the same. But in China, it's so diverse. The food is very fresh and often doesn't have all of these accompanying sauces that we have here in the U.S.
Well, I hope we can move more in that direction, because how you just described it is something I'd much rather have.
Absolutely.
Professor Charles Shoemaker with UC Davis, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
All right, stick around, everyone. We are back in just a moment.